Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependency podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. That is, for being codependent. Now in your 20s, you're exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in crap relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Hey girl, hey. Welcome back to the Codependency podcast. It's your hostess, mostess, Marissa Escobar. And today I will be discussing codependency and infidelity part 2. After meeting with Dr. Alsaleem last week, I did some reflecting and I was like, I need to expand on this topic. So that's what we will be discussing. And just a heads up, I am house and dog sitting for some dear family friends. So if you hear the adorable Frenchie Wednesday in the background, just know that she wanted to keep me company and meet all you listeners. So, she's sleeping. She's pretty quiet, but she's here. So, there's that. All right. So, last week with Dr. Alsaleem, we discussed different layers of codependency as it relates to infidelity. So, a quick review. Okay. We talked about how codependency can lead a partner to cheat, right? If they're giving in a relationship and not getting their needs met, they might look elsewhere. How having a codependent partner could drive someone to cheat outside because it's exhausting to have someone be so heavily reliant on you. We also talked about how if and when a person cheats, they may become codependent with the third party and continue that relationship because they feel bad for dragging them into this and he or she or they are having a really hard time. And so if you haven't heard it, I highly encourage you to listen to part 1 and then come back to part 2. So after doing some reflecting, I realized I forgot to talk with Dr. Alsaleem about one aspect of my codependency related to infidelity. And that is what we will be discussing today. I propose that thanks to my own codependency and my rule, I will be uncomfortable, so you will be comfortable, right? That was my oath in my early 20s. I actually invited, unconsciously, but I unconsciously invited married men into my life. I let them violate multiple boundaries, and I set myself up to become the third party because I could not say no to them. Yes, thanks to my codependency and needing to take care of these men, please them, and avoid upsetting, disappointing, or angering them, I really set myself up to be a mistress. So that's what we're going to talk about. I am going to give a short lesson on boundaries as it relates to codependency and infidelity, and then we will travel back down memory lane to hear about how I almost became that third party. Also, dear listeners, I will admit that I was hesitant to share this. Part of me wants to protect the other person involved. Another part of me doesn't want to admit to you guys just the dark places and messes that my codependency got me into that I am not proud of. But, another part of me knows that you likely have or will get yourself into situations like these So I want to share my experience in hopes that you can stop playing small and start taking up space in whatever the situation is that you're in and not make the same mistakes that I did. Also, names and details will be changed since I hope to keep the focus on moi, on me. We can demonize this guy who I'm going to talk about and make him out to be a creep, but I really want to focus on me. Okay, my inability to set and maintain boundaries and the price I paid to make him happy. Okay, so some education before we start. In her book, Facing Codependency, Pia Mellody defines two types of boundaries. And first, let's start with how does she define boundaries? So Pia writes that boundaries are an invisible force field that keeps people from coming into your space and abusing you. And it keeps you from going into the space of others and abusing them. And it really gives you a way to embody who you are. That Boundaries by Pia Mellody. She then expands and discusses internal and external boundaries. Internal boundaries are the limits and protections you put in place to guard your thinking, feeling, and behavior. You also relinquish responsibility for others' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. That is an internal boundary. External boundaries are those that they allow you to choose your physical distance from other people and empower you to allow or deny the requests of others to touch you and your property. And with external boundaries, there are external physical boundaries, so proximity, closeness to others, and sexual boundaries, right? With whom, when, where, why, and how you will be sexual with others. Those are external boundaries. Pia also expands on 4 boundary systems. And so there's intact boundaries, right? They're intact. Non-existent boundaries literally don't exist. Damaged boundaries. So it's like, you have a wall up over here, but then there's a hole over here. So they're just damaged and inconsistent. And 4th, walls instead of boundaries. So today, I am really just going to focus on the first 3. So intact boundaries provide flexible internal and external boundaries, right? You say no verbally and non-verbally. Your boundaries are intact. Everything's in alignment. Again, non-existent boundaries, they just don't exist. You don't protect yourself. Other people can take advantage of you. You can be abused because you have no protection. And then damaged boundaries, right? Inconsistent. So it just means that with certain people, you may be able to have a strong boundary, like at work, but then in other situations, like with your partner, you have very poor boundaries, like you're a doormat. So damaged boundaries. And in this story that I'm going to share today, you will hear how both my internal and external boundaries were violated and how I had non-existent and damaged boundaries until I had to put up a wall. And let's see if you can relate. All right, so I was 21 years old. And thanks to starting therapy about like that year, maybe the year prior, I was prioritizing self-care and had started to run and exercise. I can't remember what season it was. Maybe it was in the fall. I started to attend a fitness class and became close with the fellow students in the fitness class, as well as our instructor. We are going to call him Mr. Mr. was about 10 years older than me. I think 10-ish, maybe like 8, 9, 10-ish years older than me, and married, and a cool instructor. It was a cool fitness class. And I started to attend, was enjoying that, getting if you guys haven't listened to earlier episodes, I weighed about 40 pounds heavier than I do now. So I was losing weight, getting in shape, getting my life together, thanks to going to therapy and working through what I didn't know at the time was codependency. I thought it was anxiety and depression. And so I'm working on myself. And in the summer of 2009, I decided to sign up for a half marathon. And Mr. and some other fitness students decided to join me. And we trained together. And thanks to running all those miles, we got to know each other better the couple months before our race. And I was young, codependent, and started to shrug off things that seemed odd. I remember Mr. texted me one time, I think before a class, or maybe we were getting together to go running with the group. And he texted me, "What time are you coming?" or "When are you coming?" And he spelt it CUM, which is not how you spell coming. like what time are you coming? And yeah, it was like, "When are you coming?" Like the sexual reference. And I was like, yeah, interesting spelling in that text. And I shrugged it off. And I think I said like, "Oh, like 2 or something," and just ignored it. But yeah, definitely uncomfortable. And this is an example of, yeah, really like a non-existent boundary where I just, okay. But again, sexual, inappropriate, and I just ignored it. I also think he just started texting me more in general, which seemed okay, right? But I was young and he had a lot of charisma, so I wasn't opposed to the attention, but it was odd again. So just like these, like, look at me even talking about it and hearing like this dissonance, this contrast, these mixed feelings and experiences, like, oh. And I think that has a lot to do with our codependency, right? We start to sense something and then we just question the fuck out of it and ourselves. And yeah, so that was odd. The sexual reference in the text, texting me more. And I remember like sometimes he was flirty with the girls in the fitness class, the other students, which, okay, odd, interesting, noticing. And I was attending this fitness center we were running together sometimes, and he would treat me to a meal after, which again, that's not horrible. That's very nice. Like if we just ran, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 miles, obviously I'm hungry, but reflecting now, if my 32-year-old husband was spending his Sunday running 8 or 10 miles with a 21-year-old girl and then taking her to eat after, uh, you know, that's is that odd? I don't know. Can you guys let me know? I sense I would be uncomfortable in that situation if my husband was doing that. So at the time, I wasn't questioning it that much, and also shrugging, rationalizing, normalizing this behavior. So those were just some things that I started to shrug off, overlook. I remember that we were fundraising, or like you know dedicating the race to a cause. I remember attending something for that, and yeah, it seemed like some people thought we were together, and it wasn't opposed by him. It was just like, okay. So we ran the race together along with the other fitness students, and we celebrated that night. I was living with 10 roommates, and not all 10 of them went out, but yeah, we celebrated and toasted and went out in the downtown area to, you know, just it was a big deal. And right, celebration done, race is done. Let's go back to the fitness class, and maybe me running, maybe I'd sign up for another half marathon. But yeah, like a week or two later, Mr. wanted to have another celebration at my house, which was on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, and had a very nice beer pong setup with the students, fellow students who ran the half marathon. So it's like, okay. And yeah, I can't remember. It's been 10 years. I cannot remember the rationale for why we needed another celebration. But okay, sure. So we invited a few students. My roommates joined us, and we played beer pong. And Mr. got very drunk. And one of my best friends to this day, she was there, she lived with me. I talked with her in prepping for this episode. And another roommate was there, and she recalled like looking at him, watching me, and she was very uncomfortable. Yeah, he was huggy and being silly. And for those of you who are listening, I'm like putting my hands out, just like touchy feely. And yeah, she was like, "Oh my God, Marissa, this is not okay." And I was like, "No, like it's fine. Like it's really not that big of a deal. Like he's just like this, and it's okay." Right? But I had slowly habituated to this type of behavior maybe those past couple months, and so it just, again, being codependent, didn't question fully, didn't think critically, really enabled and was passive in this development. And so I was not as weirded out at that time. but yeah, he was really drunk. He was really drunk. I was not as drunk, thankfully. Kind of hanging on me and hugging me, and it was time for him to go. And so I recall very clearly saying, "Mister, it's it's time. Like, you need to leave." And he was drunk and in my face, right? His eyes are kind of droopy, and he said, "I won't leave until you kiss me." And I was like, "What?" Like, "No, mister, I'm not going to kiss you." And he's like, "Kiss me or I'm not leaving." And I was like, no, mister." Somehow, like, I don't know. I recall him like being very close to my face, and just like being very stubborn and clear, like, "I'm not leaving until you kiss me." And so, you know, somehow I think we were able to get rid of him. And I think he called his wife to pick him up. It's very blurry, but he left. Good riddance. And my best friend, Anna, our roommate, we went out. It was Friday night in our college town, so there were other parties to attend. And I recall being out with my friends, with other people, and I got a call from Mister. And I was like, "Hello?" And he was like crying, and he's like, "We got a fight. I'm at your house." And I was like, "Why are you at my house?" Like, right, the fitness center was in the college town. So it's like, dude, just go there. I don't know, like, call your wife back and have her. I don't know. I don't think Uber existed, but like taxis definitely existed at the time. So yeah, again, it's odd, but here I was setting a boundary, right? I've set up an external boundary, like, "No, I'm not going to kiss you. You need to leave." I did it in a very nice codependent way. And so I set up this external boundary, and he called and was at my home, and I sensed he was pushing that boundary again, right? Like, I set it up. "I'm not going to kiss you. You need to leave." And now you've left, you got in a fight with your wife, and now you're back at my place. So, you know, being the codependent dummy that I was, I sensed that I told my friends, like, "He's back," and I went to go take care of him. So Anna, she remembered coming home, and Mister and I were in the living room. Maybe we were eating or hanging out. And again, I think there was like hugging and leaning. And I think Anna laid down the law and was like, "He needs to leave." Like, they made me kick him out. Like, they were like, "This is really," right? Like, my external boundaries, they were not intact, right? They were inconsistent. And these roommates, like my friends, they really had to set an intact boundary, because I was just incapable. So I proceeded to walk him down the stairs and to make him leave, but he was still hell bent on kissing me. And so it was like hugging and like heavy petting and like, "Oh God, no, mister, no," like, ugh. So let's just pause, right, and look at what is happening. I was 21 years old. He's 30 something. I am drinking. He is a hot fitness instructor. Bad. Very, very bad. He had also sent those texts, treated me to meals, made sexual jokes along the way. He had left and had now come back after getting in an argument or fight, I don't even know, with his wife. Right? Such a codependent dummy, enabling his non-existent boundaries. Right? He is not showing intact external, internal boundaries at all. And like, this is what my codependency at its like least fine, right? They say like, oh, my finer moments, my like least finer moments looks like. And yeah, he like wouldn't leave, and I wouldn't kick him out. And so we ended up sleeping in my twin bed, fully clothed, for a couple hours. And he left in the middle of the night, and I think he went to the fitness center finally. Right? So if you are judging me right now, I totally get it, because I definitely judged myself. I feel very ashamed that this is what my codependency and need to please led to. Right? Fully clothed evening in my twin bed, all because I had no voice or ovaries, power to say to men like Mr., this is making me uncomfortable and you need to leave. So, yeah, right? Like, we can blame him, demonize him. I can point my finger, but there are three pointing back at me. And I can really just see how, again, I don't want to blame myself either, because I was raised, reinforced, and rewarded to put the needs of others above my own. But look at the cost, right? And just really like what if I had been drunker? What if I had been less mature? What if my morals were different and I didn't respect marriage as much as I do and did? Right? Like, I really was setting myself up to be the third party in a marriage. So I believe that he called me the next day, came over and apologized. I remember he thanked me for being mature, and I sense that I really minimized what happened. I was like, yeah, no, like, it's fine. It's no big deal. Thanks. And I sense I consciously kept going to the fitness center for like another 2, 3, 4 weeks, because I wanted to make sure that he didn't feel bad, or like what he had done had negatively impacted our relationship. I literally, like, semi-consciously did that. I think it was unconscious, but still, I'm like, no, yeah, I think I kind of knew. Like, I was like, I don't want him to feel bad, so I'm just going to keep going so he doesn't feel terrible and horrible about himself. I'll feel terrible and horrible going and having these memories and feeling uncomfortable and like anger. I was definitely angry with him for his behavior. I was angry at myself for letting it get that far. But yeah, just, in denial of that for a couple months. And then I did eventually pull away sometime later. But, you know, I think I still attended that fitness center for off and on 2, 3 years. So looking back, I can see how I felt responsible for his feelings, right? That is not an internal boundary. How I didn't want to upset him by creating a boundary, but how me neglecting to set a boundary, I really, I've said it, but I think I really set myself up. And yeah, his behavior, inappropriate, uncalled for, it did really upset me, and I did see him different. So that kind of sucked too. Like, this is what poor boundaries will do to a codependent dummy, right? Sometimes we get to know people in a way that if we'd had stronger boundaries, I don't know, maybe it would have been different. Maybe I wouldn't have thought and seen him as immature, manipulative, fake, right? I want to point my finger and call him a liar, which he was, but I was too. I was lying the whole time and pretending I was okay with his behavior. I was lying to him, I was lying to myself. Yeah, I was not. So, this is one of a few times when men would violate my boundaries and put me into situations where I would eventually have to snap in order to create a boundary. Right? Remember the 75-year-old man from one of the beginning episodes? Um, so there you go, you codependent dummy listener. This is another aspect of codependency and infidelity, how codependents can be vulnerable to becoming a third party since we suck at boundaries, feel responsible for others' needs, and will do what we need to please them, even if it means sacrificing our own internal and external boundaries. And yeah, it happened over 10 years ago. And I do want to practice self-forgiveness, self-compassion, and also self-responsibility, right? Thankfully, because of that and some other incidences, I really started to see how my part in these situations, so I could take on more responsibility and create healthy boundaries. But, I think I felt a lot of shame after that. Since I worried what my friends thought of me and my behavior. And right, like, because I pulled away from the fitness center, I also maybe lost opportunities to create closer friendships with the fellow students. You know, I think I felt awkward interacting with Mr. and his partner. And right, how did I deal with that shame and embarrassment and anger? I think I took it out on myself, as I still do and have done. And yeah, this is the price we pay for ignoring ourselves, that internal compass that I know I started to hear, started to respect, started to adhere to more and more throughout my 20s. But this is the price we pay when we ignore that internal compass that says like, like, girl, this is not okay. Girl, this is inappropriate. Girl, you do not want to be in this situation. Right? When we ignore that, we pay a price. And looking back, it was not worth it. It was not, right? To keep him content, to keep him happy, to, laugh off his inappropriate texts or jokes or, touchy-feeliness, right? To keep our relationship going, to just maintain, like, not ruffle any feathers, or I'm trying to think of another metaphor, but keep the water calm. I don't know, you guys, I'm a little codependent with metaphors today. It wasn't worth it. Right? To me, to our relationship and other people involved. And I will, some growth. I do recall a few years later, another older gentleman who was married contacted me outside of our meditation meeting. You guys know I do different and have done different self-care practices. So this was another, not the 75-year-old man, not Mr., this other gentleman. And I remember he texted me late and was checking in on something, and it seemed innocent. But I had been down that road before. And I remember I texted him back and I said, please do not text me late in the evening. It makes me uncomfortable. I will see you at the next meditation meeting. And that was it. And I can't remember if he apologized via text or in person or both. But yeah, I just remember like a vague, like, he was like, hey, I did not mean to make you uncomfortable. I apologize and will not do that. But I never had to deal with him or an inappropriate text again. So maybe it's that easy. Maybe you can do it too. Yeah, there's just, the more I do these episodes, the conversations that I have with these experts and therapists and different professionals about codependency, I really start to look at and think critically about myself and my codependency and what I ignored and how that just, it turned into a snowball that just cut all this stuff on the way down. So really trying at the beginning, right? The first sign, the first violation of a boundary, like how can we start and put out that fire then, right? As opposed to later. So questions for you, you dear codependent. What comes up for you while listening? Have you been in a similar situation? What would it be like to create a strong boundary at the first sign of a violation? Do you agree that you are more vulnerable to being a third party or being taken advantage of in your family, relationship, at work, or with friends due to your difficulty in setting boundaries? Let me know what you think. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at codependemy. And remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. Until next time, I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And this is Marissa. I am rooting for you, and I will see you all next week.
You're still here? Just kidding. Girl, this is not therapy, and I'm not your therapist, okay? This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the publisher, or the guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional information. If you want or need a professional, you should find one.